Professor Brain Brown's research shows that vulnerability fosters good emotional and mental health. It is a sign of courage. We become more resilient and brave when we embrace who we truly are and what we are feeling. The Vulnerable Scientist podcast is a space for scientists to tell their honest and authentic stories. I am your host, Sarah Nyakeri, who happens to be a scientist, informal science communicator, and I help scientists create personal websites. If you want to support this show, go to www.patreon.com/thevulnerable-scientist. You can also follow this podcast on all social media platforms at TV Scientist Pod. That was really great because you are not the postdoc, right?
No, I wasn't. It was, for me, I felt it was an incredible achievement. I was very proud. I was very excited to have worked with that team. It was a very good outcome.
Was it like a PhD? 3.5 years. Was it like a PhD?
It could have been like a PhD, but it wasn't. I was just a research assistant.
Did you think about, I don't know, anyway.
I did think perhaps I should have pursued it, but then there was no opportunity to be a student of the project. I mean, also because of funding restrictions and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
But I was perfectly okay with that because the PIs of the project had the same PIs who are supporting my application to go to their institution to do a PhD, so they were supportive.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was great. It was good. And the ending was even more colorful,
Yeah.
And so now I transitioned into a PhD full time. By this point already, you can figure out that the 30-year-old mark had
already gotten, and you are now starting.
Yes, and I'm now starting, which was fine. Better late than never.
Yeah.
Right.
But let's just be honest. What were you thinking at that moment? Like, yes, finally we have a PhD. After, yes, especially those opportunities that you get after a rigorous process. Yeah, they must feel good. But what was going through your mind when it comes to the 30 mark?
When I looked at it, I was like, okay, there was that timeline that I placed for myself. But also I looked at it and thought, but I spent the last 3.5 years of my life doing something incredible.
Yeah.
And the outcome was equally incredible. So no loss there. And then I realized there is your timeline and then there's the timeline of God. And God determines when he answers your prayers and when you move on to the next level. And you actually move to the next level when you're ready. I think it's a Chinese saying or a proverb or something that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. But when the student is really ready, the teacher will disappear.
Huh?
Have you ever heard that?
No. I don't know. I was waiting for a greater person than a teacher or something.
Paula, you're waiting for the professor. Sorry.
I don't know. I was waiting for something greater than a teacher or something. Not disappear. Like, what does it mean?
So, if you're going through life and something is happening to you and you're looking for something, or you keep going through a certain situation.
Yeah.
And there's a lesson that you're supposed to learn from that situation. But you don't learn the lesson. So what happens in life, the lesson keeps repeating. So when you're ready for something, the lesson will come. But then if you really don't learn the lesson will repeat.
Yeah.
And the lesson repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats until you've learned the lesson. When you've truly understood what the lesson was, then that lesson stops. Then you move on to another lesson.
Yeah.
This is how I looked at it. I looked at it as that search for that PhD opportunity and the fails, the failures was, I was supposed to have picked a lesson there. And for me, the lesson was the failure was not a failing on, for example, the rejection was not a failing on my end. It was just that I needed to be more patient and persistent because this is what life will demand. This is what a career in research will demand. persistence, and patience, and to continue knocking on doors even when they get shut.
Yeah.
And I think it took that process for me to internalize that. And so when this opportunity came to me, I brought a wholesome person. I didn't bring a person who had some two issues who were lacking in the bushes, like, hey, are you up to the task? Are you equal to the task? What are you going to do? It kind of prepared me for the journey that is a doctorate, which is a journey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so now I transitioned and I started my PhD, and I moved back to the city, to Nairobi, and I registered for my PhD at the University of Pretoria in South Africa. My master's supervisor and boss then, and the same PI I was working in this project in Western Kenya, was also my PhD, one of my PhD advisors. And I also got another PhD advisor, and of course other advisors at the university. So I had a team of 4.
Yeah.
And then 2017 I got started, and I was working on. So the topic kind of morphed. In the beginning, I was supposed to develop a tool for surveillance of male mosquitoes. But sometimes how you can have a topic, and then when you get to doing the work, you realize the work is taking a different direction. So in the end, my thesis was on biological traits, plant feeding patterns, and chemical ecology of Aedes aegypti. Aedes aegypti is a yellow fever mosquito. Or the dengue mosquito. So it's a mosquito that transmits viruses, dengue, yellow fever, chikungunya, Zika in some places. And its sister is another one called Aedes albopictus that is very common in Asia. And it's the one that more recently was in the news with the Zika outbreaks that were in Asia and then Latin America. So I was working with that species of mosquitoes, and I was trying to understand biological traits and how those traits shape the ability of this mosquito to be able to transmit disease. Also, that one thing that has been often overlooked is that mosquitoes feed on plants. So I also wanted to understand the plant feeding patterns of that particular species. And I also wanted to understand the chemical ecology. So I was also looking at the plants that they like to go to for sugar, and understanding the chemical cues that influence that interaction, and seeing whether we can use those chemical cues to develop odor-baited traps, or rather traps that are baited with attractants that are based on odors from those plants. Yeah. So that was that was my PhD thesis.
Amazing. And what happened with the
4 years flew. They flew lots of lab work. Of course, there were highlights to that. One of those highlights was that, of course, the major highlights were that I was able to publish 2 chapters out of 3 of my PhD thesis. So I have 2 papers of my PhD. In the course of that, we were able to, but towards the tail end of the PhD, we started working on a book chapter with my supervisors. That has since been accepted by a publisher. It's still out there.
Wow.
Sooner or later, it's going to be published. It's going to be a chapter in a book on attractants of mosquitoes, particularly those that are derived from human and animal hosts.
Even human?
Even human. Because mosquitoes are not only attracted to, plants, like I said, but also to humans. I mean, they find you based on, they use your body odor to find you. The carbon dioxide that you produce, some of the, chemicals that are on your skin. Yeah.
By the way, just let me just insert a question here. So do you think, is it scientific that mosquitoes have a preference to certain people?
Yes, they do.
What? So those people have those chemicals in their body?
No, it's not that those people have those chemicals and then the people that the mosquitoes don't like don't have those chemicals. It's that we produce them in different amounts.
Oh.
And the compositions vary depending on what's going on in your body.
And is there any external factors that can contribute to this, or is it something to do with our genetic makeup?
Well, there's genetic makeup, but also there's factors like if you live in a really warm place and you're sweating, of course your odor is going to be very pronounced, and the mosquitoes are going to have a field day with you. If you've come from a jog and you've broken into a sweat, and sweat compounds are very attractive to mosquitoes, again, that's going to influence, their attraction to you and stuff like that.
The solution is to bathe.
If you could take a bath to reduce your attractiveness.
Okay.
But of course there are things that you can't shower away. I mean, there's that natural odor, and the magnitude in which you produce some of these compounds, or rather some of these chemicals, depending on where you are, like what's going on in your body. I mean, you have very little control over that. Although, I mean, there's research that shows that, for example, if you eat certain kind of foods, for example, if you eat garlic, they won't like you a lot. But if, for example, you drink a beer, they find you a lot more attractive. I mean, there are all sorts of things that shape their interactions with humans as well as animals. So we did put together a book chapter on that, and that was one of those really high moments for my PhD. Also, part of the process included, it was a very short stint of time, and I had like lots of actual work. So in between that work, it was what is it called? Like, these are the highs that happened in between. In between the process. I also had a chance, to present my findings at an international conference in the US, to actually give a talk in a symposia. I was able to go showcase my work at the Grand Challenges, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Yes, I was nominated by my center to go and present my work at the Grand Challenges annual meeting in 2019, and what was then called, let me toot my horn here, it was called Rising Star Scientists. So I was nominated for that. Those are some of the really awesome things that happened in that 4-year span.
What made your institution to nominate you? Because I'm imagining there are other PhD students.
Yeah, there are other PhD students, and of course I wasn't nominated by myself. I was there with my colleague, and who was also doing very well, and she's doing very well for herself. Her name is Gladys. Let me just mention her. Her name is Gladys Mosomotai. She's a GIS expert. She's now winding up on her thesis.
Gladys who?
Mosomotai.
Oh.
Yeah, and she's actually a L'Oreal fellow, the UNESCO L'Oreal fellow. I think she was a fellow in 2018. Or is it 2019? And then she's now the Next Einstein Forum ambassador for Kenya.
Wow.
So we the both
another
of us
woman.
were nominated. Yes, another woman. And I this is very intentional for me to mention her name, for somebody who's listening to know that there are lots of women who are really making headway in science, in STEM, and doing really great things. So we were nominated together, and perhaps maybe the reason why we were nominated, one, maybe is because we are women, two, also because I think we were in our individual spheres, we were doing well. And of course, the ability to be able to, represent your institution adequately in forums like those. I think there's a little bit of that as well. But yeah, so that was one of the highs, including, of course, publishing all of this work and, being able to now present in those conferences and also in seminars internally and all of that. Yeah, so that was what my PhD looked like in a nutshell. It was 4 years that went. They were both fast and slow. They went fast, but they were also slow. They were slow on the days when, lab work was not going the way you want it to go. But they were fast, when you're making wins and when you're trying to make progress to get to the finishing line.
Oh, man. 2021.
Yes. Of course, so when COVID happened 2020, maybe to take you back a little bit,
okay.
I was in the tail end of my PhD, and I was supposed to do some work, and now it was field-based, and so COVID happened, and we had these regulations on movement and stuff like that, and you couldn't cross from one county to another, so I had to rework my entire plan with the PhD for that particular part, and so there's tons of fieldwork that I was not able to do, and there was also, of course, the academic timeline with the university, and so I had to wind up on a few things. But yeah, all went well, and so 2020 I spent it writing my thesis. Partly, I did have some lab work partly, and yeah, I wrote my thesis. And then 2021, 2021 July, I believe, I submitted my thesis. And it's interesting that because of how COVID changed everything, because now we were working remotely, working from home, I did get a chance to start now looking for the next opportunity. And so right, which is now, by now, you do know that I write unsolicited emails a lot.
Yeah.
To anybody who I believe could help me.
Yeah.
So, of course, I was writing unsolicited emails to people and trying to see if I can find postdoc opportunities and making applications to places. And so by the time I was winding up on my thesis and doing the final submission, I had already had an interview with the Wellcome Trust. And coincidentally, once I submitted this thing, then I got a call and they said, we are considering to bring you on board. But of course, first you have to, get your PhD. Good enough for a university, the procedures were different. So by the time you're doing that final submission, it's your thesis has come back from the examiners, you've addressed the comments, they've looked at them, faculty is happy. That July is when I was doing the final submission.
From thesis submission to the final end, how long did that take? This is University of Pretoria.
Now listen. Remember how we did almost a year and a half?
Yeah, at KU.
Now, it took exactly 8 weeks.
Wow.
Yes. From the day my thesis was received by the examiners to the day I got the comments, it was about, was it 8? No, was it 8 weeks? Wait a minute. Am I forgetting? Yeah, I think it was 8 weeks.
Wow.
8 weeks is 2 months, right?
Yeah, it's 2 months.
2 months, 2.5, I think, thereabout. And I had my examiners revert with their comments. I think it was 8 weeks. 8 weeks. How is it that I could forget such an important detail?
It's okay.
I believe it's 8 weeks. Okay. I don't know what's going on there.
But whatever time it took, it's way shorter.
It wasn't 3 months.
Yeah.
It wasn't more than 3 months, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the moment you get your feedback from your examiners, you have, I think, 2 weeks or 15 days or something. I had 15 days to address those comments. And there was a timeline to it. And then submit my responses, and then it goes to faculty, and faculty looks at it. And if they're happy with how you've done everything, how you've addressed it, how you've made the changes in the thesis, then you get a go-ahead. At least you get a provisional letter. You get a letter of completion saying you've met the requirements set by the university.
Okay.
Yeah, for you to... Now you wait for the process, which is graduation and all of that stuff. So, yeah, in July, I wrapped that up. And then same time, I had interviewed for this position. And then I got an offer. But, of course, we had to ensure that I get my PhD. So then in September 15, 2021, I got my certificate.
As Dr. Wanjiku.
Yes, then I transitioned to this postdoctoral position that I'm currently working on.
Okay. How has it been so far?
Oh, wow. It's been incredible. At first, I was a bit nervous, given that, I'd been at my former research institute for 10 years by the time I was getting my doctorate.
Yeah.
And so having been in the same place, of course I had moved, I'd been to Western Kenya, I've been to a lot of places, but I was still within the same institution. So it was a bit, I was a bit jittery. I was like, am I going to adjust? How is it going to be? Most of my colleagues had become like family. So there was that attachment. I was leaving behind my mentors, my supervisors. It was emotional. That transition was emotional. I always remember packing my desk and packing my things in a box and leaving the center and thinking, I've packed 10 years of my life into this box and I'm now transitioning to somewhere else. But then I got here and it's been great, and I have an excellent. I work in an excellent research group. My boss is an incredible person. She is. One of the best. Yes. Now, yes. Now I get to work with, with a lady, which is nice. I did work with a lady when I was working in Western Kenya, but she and her partner and my then boss formed the team. But now I directly report to a lady. It's incredible. It's a whole different experience. She's a fantastic mentor so far. So now we are working.
Please mention her name if you can.
Her name is Dr. Marta Maya.
Okay.
She's Portuguese. And we are working on a project. It's called Bohemia. So it's called the Broad One Health Insecticide-Based Malaria Initiative in Africa. And we are we're evaluating the potential of a deworming drug called ivermectin. So we are evaluating its potential for reduction of malaria transmission because, in lab studies and a few field studies, it's been shown that when a human being or even an animal, because ivermectin is also used as a dewormer in animals for routine veterinary health practice. So when it's ingested by either an animal or a human, when a mosquito ingests the blood of that treated animal or human, then mosquitoes die. It has some mosquitocidal properties. Yes.
Amazing. I'm learning a lot, man. So I should be taking the I should be taking the wormers to kill mosquitoes.
We are now trying to evaluate the potential of this drug when it's given in mass, like to a community, in mass, what we call mass drug administration. And so what we are working on is a clinical trial. Yes. So a little different from the kind of setup I was in the past.
Finally humans. Like close.
And human subject research. It's been such an interesting 10 months because I've been on the role for 10 months. I've learned so much. It's a fantastic team. There's so much to do. Clinical trials are very interesting. It's been so good. So far, so good. I think this is what I could say.
How is the transition though? Like what's so different? Because apart from this being a different institution altogether, they're in the same country, yes? But
yes.
There is the different counties, different working environments. Like, how would you compare?
Of course it's different. It's the coast. First, it's hot. It's hot. I mean, Kilifi is not even as hot as Mombasa, but still it's hot. It's the coast, right? That was a bit of an adjustment for me to make. And then I came right in the heart of the summer because I came in August.
Did you go with blankets?
I moved everything that I have. But then I quickly stored them away because
where those?
And sweaters and jackets and boots, knee-high boots.
Yeah.
Because I really loved boots. And I've always been the kind of person who will grab any opportunity when even temperatures drop by a degree to wear boots.
Now you're using sandals or what?
No, I mean, I still have to wear closed shoes because I work in a lab.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I can't wear my boots, like my knee-length boots anymore. I mean, this is one of those things I was talking about the other day to a friend, and I said, oh my gosh, my boots are just here looking at me. They are crying for attention. But it is so hot. Even now that it's raining, I still can't wear them because it's extremely warm.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Well,
I've never heard someone talk about their boots like that, though. Like,
I know, because I like them. And I had lots of them. And now they just sit there and look at me sadly. Like,
what are you going to do about them, though?
I will give them away. In fact, I've already started the process of just letting go of some of these things. Yeah, because I can't.
But it must be a hard process.
It is, but you have to let go.
Yeah.
You can't. You can't hold on to things that you don't
use.
You don't use. Otherwise, then they fall apart and then
it becomes useless.
Yeah, it's useless. So you better give them away where they still can serve some form of purpose to someone. She'll probably send you a pair. What's your shoe size?
That's probably the reason why I asked you, what are you going to do about them?
What is your shoe size? Are you looking to adopt old, haggard boots that have seen the test of time?
I'm number 6.
Oh, you're a 39?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm also a 39.
Oh, okay.
Right. Let me see.
I've clapped 3 times, I think.
Let me see. I hope they're still not falling apart.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Yeah. So, I mean, the transition then is, like you're asking, I mean, getting used to the heat.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm slowly adjusting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just something that you make do. I mean, you have a fan. Everybody's under the same heat, so it's not unique to me. It's not a challenge. You just kind of get used to it. It's a quiet town where I live in, which is great. I've lived in a more quiet location before, so perfectly at home.
Yeah, this is you're talking about Udhiru.
No. I'm saying like when I was working in Bitter Point.
Oh, it's like also quiet
out there in the Bundus. So it's just a quiet, laid back.
What about the culture?
Per se. The culture is perfectly fine. The people are warm and friendly, and you really don't feel like you're out of place. You fit right in.
What about the language?
Swahili,
the kind of Swahili.
Is that Swahili where you mutilate everything? But I mean, I can speak Swahili when I have to. Like, I can use all my proper Swahili from high school. I have summoned all that Swahili from the database. These days, I'm trying to use it a little bit.
Do you still go to the shop and ask for ndengu? And they're like, what's wrong with you? Yeah.
Now I know how to ask for pojo. Yeah, and how to say maharage instead of maharagwe. Which is nice. It's an interesting experience. So that's as far as I've come. That's my journey in a nutshell.
Okay. Thanks for sharing this journey.
10 hours later.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing this journey. I'm just wondering, because I'm glad that you mentioned the highs and lows where you're talking about it. So it makes more like, I don't know, you get it more when you're saying it, when you're telling your story. But I'm wondering, are there any lows that you've experienced throughout your journey that might be directly related to your career or not, or indirectly, that influenced your career in one way or another?
Personal lows
that you've not mentioned and you'd like to share.
I think I have had, I mean, let me think. So when I think about this, I think about my social life, right? I think I have had a really vibrant social life.
Mm-hmm.
I think the unique thing about it though is that being 60% introverted and 40% extroverted, I tend to have a very small circle of friends. So I've kept the same circle of friends over the years. And these are the same people who've seen me move from one place to another. They've seen me transition into a nomadic scientist who just moves from one place to the next. these guys have been, these girls were also very instrumental in my journey. They were a huge pillar of support. So socially, I didn't feel like I had any lows. You know how sometimes they say when you transition into some of these things, you find you're losing out on your social interactions and stuff like that. No, I was able to, and I was blessed enough to be able to have that circle and keep that circle.
Are they intense?
Not at all, actually. My inner circle, no, not at all.
How is it that? How is it like explaining your kind of career path to, and them getting it? Like, I don't know. I usually feel like people don't sometimes.
They don't get it?
Yeah. How was it?
Maybe because I'm a storyteller. Maybe
and a good one
I'm
for
able
that.
to captivate people with my strange stories about the lab and
yeah. Oops.
These have been friendships built over years. So the connection is much deeper. It's based on a shared life experience that is a lot richer than just, how careers metamorphose. This word is gone. How careers just morph over the years. So there's a little bit of that. So the glue that holds them together is more than just what we are doing in our individual lives. I mean, that's part of the process because we are all evolving, but it's friendships built on something more than that. Because all of us have morphed in our individual ways. So socially, I don't know, I've had pretty much the same friends. I've made others, of course, in the science space. And I've also been blessed enough to make meaningful connections in that regard. I have 3 friends that I hold dearly. I have a friend who's now is in the US. She's pursuing her PhD. Her name is Juliet, and she's a chemist and a brilliant chemist at that. And there is another woman.
Yeah.
Mention of another woman.
Yeah.
I mentioned Gladys.
Yeah.
And there's Ruth Kihika. Ruth Kihika is also a chemist. And she's also on the tail end of her PhD. In fact, Ruth and I and Gladys had what we used to call a lean-in circle. We still do. So, of course, inspired by, I don't know whether you've read the book by Sheryl Sandberg, Lean-In.
No.
You should.
Sadly.
It's about women work and the will to lead. It's women work and leadership. And so we used to have a circle, the 3 of us, just to encourage each other in the journey. And I happened to be the one who finished a PhD first, and then now Gladys is winding up her PhD. She's transitioned into a postdoc. And Ruth is also on the tail end. She's, I believe, soon going to also transition into a postdoc. So there's that also professional inner circle that helps to keep things balanced. And you really, when you need that shoulder, you can get it. There's also another friend of mine. Her name is Dr. Teresa Milugo. She's just completed a PhD as well. She's a biochemist. She is also part of the people that we walked together in the journey and in the path, and who, we offered shoulders to lean on and ears to listen. And I mean, these are the same people you go out to have a cup of coffee with, to celebrate the small wins in the lab, the big wins and stuff like that. So I think having that kind of
I love that. Like, women
supporting women.
Yeah.
It's instrumental. Let me tell you, it makes a big difference. So I think socially, I have had like a strong social fabric around me, and of course my family. That has been like that's the sounding board. That's the place to land. It's the soft landing. It's everything. My mom, my sister. She's also a budding scientist. She's actually pursuing a master's in what is it called? Tropical
medicine.
Tropical animal biology.
Oh, okay. What do you want to say name?
Oh, I was still trying to think tropical animal biology. Oh yeah, it's tropical animal biology. Her name is Ivy Nyambura. Yeah, and these are the people that have been the circle around me, professionally, socially, at the family level. And
you've not mentioned, I don't know if it's invasive though, you can say no, but yes,
I'm not done yet.
Sorry.
Let me preempt.
Yes.
Let me preempt because I was leaving that for last.
Okay.
And also my partner, because I have a partner. This now all together, this forms the people around me. My partner's name is Lewis Mandaka. He's a brilliant guy. He's possibly one of the very few people who really, wraps his head, who's a non-science person, but wraps his head around the kind of science that I do. And he's my sounding board. I bounce ideas off him. And yeah, he's the only non-science person other than my close circle of girlfriends. Him and those people are the non-scientists around me.
who get to listen and understand
who
what
really,
you're talking.
yes, and they ask questions and they're like, I see what that is. Okay, how is that helpful to humanity? They ask me questions.
But do you think that those conversations that you have help you in communicating science in the simplest of manners to a non-science audience? Do you think that helps?
I think so. I think it helps a lot. I mean, because you can't take your jargon there.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys will be like, okay, speak English. English.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what you're saying. And so you always have to calculate what you're trying to say and look for the best words to use. And I think it helps. It helps to be able to, because I find science communication can be tricky. A lot of scientists, just because their minds are just programmed for jargon. I mean, for science, it's not jargon actually, it's technical. It's technical language. So they express these things using the technical language, which a lot of people don't understand. So it's important to strive to break down that technical language into something that people can understand. Actually, if we all did that as scientists, people would be able to identify with science a lot more.
The reason why I don't know, when I get an opportunity, I get to ask about those friendships, relationships, and family, how they contribute to someone's career and all that, and especially the partner part, is because as much as we talk about women and striving and all that, there is the relationship part, and if it's not an enabling environment, I've found most women who are in relationships that are enabling really do well. It's not like if you're not in a relationship at all, that you can't do well, or if you're not in a relationship that is enabling, you can't do well. But it's I don't know, I don't have data for that, but I've seen a lot of relation with that. You can see a correlation between an enabling environment in that sense and growth of a woman's career.
I'd say this, that's the thing, and I don't think it's just in science alone, I think it's in life in general. If a woman is not in a relationship that's enabling, or she's not thriving in that relationship, then it takes a toll on other areas of her life. So this is really central to women in general, right? And to men as well. Because I think also men need to be in relationships that are also enabling.
Yeah.
Both genders can't thrive if the environments they are in disempower them, right?
Yeah.
But I think more for women because of our socialization and because of what society, quote unquote, expects women to become. And women, for example, I don't know whether it's just in the sciences, but I mean, I have been a subject of these sort of conversations where you're lectured or you need to find a partner, or you need to find a partner before you take your doctorate, because after you take your doctorate, you can find your partner. I mean, there are all sorts of conversations around this.
Rolling eyes.
And it can really be daunting for a young woman who's trying to navigate that landscape and trying to grow and thrive, and also, have their social life up and running. Sometimes these things don't always go hand in hand. Yeah. Sometimes you're winning in one area of your life, you're not winning in another area in your life, and vice versa. But I think ultimately women in science and women in general, and career women, I'd say, career women need to really, if you're looking to become a career woman, because not every woman wants to become a career woman, and that's the other thing. And that's a thing that's a truth that people don't want to recognize. Women are being forced to say, "Oh, I want to be lady boss." Not every woman wants to be lady boss. There's a woman who wants to just build her thing. Her turf is in the home turf, right? That's her space.
Yeah.
I mean, she wants to home make. She wants to raise children.
Yes.
That's perfectly fine.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. There is no shame at all in that. And so you can choose whatever you want to choose over whatever you want to choose, however you want to do the permutation for these things of life. It's completely up to you.
Yes.
But I feel like for career women, especially if you're looking to build a career, you have to take into account what career building, the impact of what you have to do to build that career on other aspects of your life. You have to try as much as you can. You'll never get it right. There's no formula, there's no manual. You have to, but try as much as you can to harmonize those areas. But how you harmonize that is by being authentic. Because if you're authentic, if you're who you are, and you really are who you are, and you're not trying to be like the next person, the things that are for you naturally gravitate towards you. And whenever you get, for example, in the relationship space, if you get into a situation that doesn't align to who you are, then even in the career, in the career growth, in that part of your life, you'll find that you stagnate in some ways. So you have to find a partner who fits your profile. And by that I mean they fit to the authentic person that you are, not who you're trying to look like for the rest of the world, but who you really are. And who you really are is values, is based what's your value system. And so, for example, building a career, I mean, you find building a career valuable. That's a value. You have to align yourself to someone who shares the same sort of values. Like you do. You value education. You have to find somebody who values education. Right?
Yeah.
I think this is like the basic stuff that you need to do. Of course, relationships are complex and stuff like that. And things happen to all of us in equal measure. But at that really basic level, be authentic, because you'll attract what needs to be with you. And if you do happen to be in a situation where it's not aligning to really who you are, then you need to really think. If the value systems are not aligning, it won't align, and it will eat into other areas of your life. It will eat into a career. In fact, it's interesting that you talk about this. I remember many years back when I was doing my master's, I had a friend who at that time was looking to start her master's as well, and she was in a relationship, and this person she was in a relationship with was like, "You're not going to do a master's, I want you to do a postgraduate diploma."
Why?
Because that's what he was doing, and he's like, "There's no way you're going to have a master's and have a postgraduate diploma. Now you have to choose. It's between the engagement."
God, what's wrong with people?
But I'm just saying that there are women who, even behind closed doors, deal with those sorts of challenges.
And what did she do? Sorry, I'm still following the story.
It was a hard decision. And you can imagine someone telling you, choose our relationship. It's either our relationship or your progression.
Yeah.
This person she was with had no wisdom to understand that their relationship and the progression are tied together.
Yes.
And the success of that relationship in some ways is tied to her success in other spheres of her life.
Yeah.
But she had to make the decision, and it was not easy, and she chose herself.
I love that.
She did choose herself. It wasn't easy, but I think ultimately you always have to, have the presence of mind that you put your best interests first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for saying this. Thanks for sharing that part of your life with this podcast.
Yeah, I think I have outdone myself.
You have what?
I have outdone myself. I think I have gone way and above the time limits, and
okay. So I'm assuming there are no any other lows and highs when it comes to your science career, right? That you've not talked about, that you would like to talk about, right?
No, I think that you know how some things happen then and they are heavy then and now they're not heavy later. I'm that sort of person. I keep distilling my experiences and I keep reshaping my perspectives, and some things that were important yesterday might not be important 2 years from now. But I think those are the ones that were remarkable for me. Rather, they were like some of the highlights, or how do I say it? They are the ones that stuck to my memory a little bit, and the ones that for example, when we are talking about a career journey, that I feel like if somebody listened, they would inspire them in some way, or show them that all is not lost. I mean, there are lots of lows. I mean, running a gel and in the lab and not getting your buns.
Hey.
I mean, you can cry in the gel room.
Aye, we've cried. That you can cry. We have cried.
That's them semaqualia.
Yeah.
You get lows. In fact, sometimes you get 10 lows. 2 whole weeks, 5 days, 0, nothing on your gels. I mean, those sort of things.
Yeah.
You order for reagents, they take 10 months to arrive.
Oh.
They arrive when they're expired.
Yeah.
There are those sort of things that you experience in the day-to-day. But in the grand scheme of things, yeah, it's just challenges for everyday work.
Okay. Okay. So, so let's talk about the non-sciencey part of you, the hobbies, the things that you do that have nothing to do with science, or the things that you do that you're not paid to do. Like, how do you rest? How do you spend your non-work days?
How do I rest? That's a very good question. That's interesting to ask somebody who's just gotten out of a PhD program. How do they rest? Well, it's something that I'm also looking to reacquaint myself with. Like I said, I really do like to read. And so if I mean, not this. In this case, I mean like non-science stuff. I'm not like reading an article, but I'm reading like other things. Like I like that. I listen to podcasts. I read. I'm interested in things to do with human behavior, psychology, and stuff like that. So I do spend a substantial amount of my time just learning stuff outside my sphere, and stuff to do with self-development and understanding self, because I'm intrigued by those sort of topics and psychology and and the things around us. I also do enjoy, and sometimes I shy away from saying this, I enjoy doing the things that children do, which includes coloring.
Why are you laughing?
Because it feels very strange to do this. It was not, in fact, that part of me had gone to sleep. It wasn't until last year. It's last year but one, when on my birthday, one of my best friends sent me a present, and she bought me an adult coloring book and color pencils.
Wow.
And for a long time, I hadn't done anything artsy. I used to, in the past, I used to like to make, even as a child growing up, I loved art and craft. I'd make cards, greeting cards, bookmarks. I'd paint things, I'd color things.
Mm.
I always like to do stuff like with my hands. But when my friend she sent me this birthday present when I was like in the thick of things with my thesis, and I was stressed, and the transition there was a lot going on in my life at that stage. And she sent me this present to calm me down, and she sent me an adult coloring book. And color pencils, and she woke up something that had been dormant like for 4 years or 5 years. I hadn't done anything artsy. And
so she knew you used to color before.
Yeah, we'd talk about it, but I guess in passing, but it wasn't something that I had actively been doing. But then when she sent me, it was a very thoughtful gift.
Yeah.
So when she sent me this gift, so
wow,
like that artsy bit of me kind of just woke up. It had been sleeping for a while. I mean, I hadn't touched anything with my hands. I used to, when I was living in Western Kenya, I'd color things, paint things, do things. But then when I came back from my PhD, I think it was just overwhelming. And sometimes you even forget you have hobbies. So, yeah, so that was a nice hobby that I woke up again. And it's interesting that the same year I also got a gift from my sister, and she sent me what do you call these books? Dot to dot. You know, where you make images by following dots. These are the kind of things that I enjoy doing. I also enjoy doing jigsaw puzzles, like buy puzzles, and I enjoy like just putting together a puzzle. I mean, lay it out on the table and have it on the table for like 3 months until it's gathering dust piece by piece.
Wow.
They are very weird, very introverted sort of hobbies.
They are very good hobbies. Okay, maybe I was talking to the wrong person. I don't know.
Perhaps. because I tell people, I color. I'm a grown-up, but I do adult coloring books. Like, I go to look at color pencils and things. And I like jigsaw puzzles. And I like jazz music. In the past, I used to try as much as I can to go to concerts and stuff like that. Yeah. I don't think I no longer work on my hobbies in terms of sports and things like this. Exercise from time to time, but no active sports. I think that has slowly faded out of my life. Yeah.
Which sports were you playing?
I played sports a long time ago. I played sports in high school. I played basketball, but after that,
you had mentioned.
Out. And I tried to take up tennis. I fell off the horse. The demands of the research project for my PhD was just extra. I might just wake up to that again. Yeah, but I have now those internal hobbies of doing things like coloring and doing jigsaw puzzles quietly to unwind, and reading and doing stuff like that.
Do you want to recommend a book or a podcast or two? I don't know.
Oh my gosh. I had, for a little while, I was listening to Esther Perel. So Esther Perel is a psychologist, and she has a podcast that was called How Is Work? I found that podcast very intriguing and very interesting. It's one that I could recommend. I also do follow a lot of YouTube channels. One of the YouTube channels I enjoy a lot is Lewis. How do I say his name? Lewis Howes. I don't know. Maybe I've massacred that name. Howes. He has a YouTube channel called The School of Greatness. Those are some of my favorites, and then I just binge on other things here and there. But yeah, those are some of the things that I enjoy listening to. And he brings on a lot of different people on his show talking about very important stuff around all sorts of topics: relationship, money, health, parenting, psychology, everything. And it's often very mind blowing stuff that comes on there. do I have a book that I would recommend? Maybe I should mention what I'm reading currently or what
Yeah.
I'm listening to.
Yeah.
I'm listening to my current audiobook is some courses on plague.
Huh?
It sounds very weird when I say it
Out loud.
So I've been listening to an audiobook. So it's a compilation. It's like a lecture series. It's called The Great Courses. So there are many different ones, and a lot about medieval history. But now I'm listening to one on the plague, the Black Death, which the disease that killed people in the 16th, 14th, and 19th century in massive numbers. It's about the idea is how a pandemic begins. The idea of contagions and the mechanisms of that is very interesting. It's being it's narrated by what's her name, Dorsey Amstrong. She's the professor in, I think, English and literature. That's my current audiobook. I am also I'm the sort of person who reads multiple books. I'm not very faithful. I don't read one book and finish. I usually have like books
small
sitting
pages
on my shelf. So, for example, I have Atomic Habits, James Clear. I'm sure you've
heard of it.
Heard about it. People are talking about it now. That was one of the books on my reading list that I really need to finish. I also have a book by Malcom Gladwell. It's called Talking to Strangers. It's also on my reading list. I have another one called Range. It's also on my reading list. I have tons and tons of books on my reading list. And sometimes I just get carried away by everyday things and work and things like that. And I'm not always very effective when it comes to finishing them in time, but I do finish in the end.
Okay. I would love for you to send me, those, and I'll attach it onto the show notes of this podcast.
Okay.
For anyone who's interested,
I'll make a note for that so that I don't forget. Okay.
That would be really lovely. So I've loved this conversation. I'm just wondering what is one thing that you hoped that I would ask and I didn't ask?
Wow. Did I have any expectations of what you'd ask? No, none. None. I think I feel like I've even just like given too much information.
How do you feel after having this conversation?
Given that it's going to go in record.
Yeah.
And maybe one day my children will listen to this. I don't know about that. I'm just saying that it goes into record. It feels like it's being a private person and somebody who likes to keep to themselves. In some ways I was worried that I'd be giving too much away. But also I realized now, talking about my journey now, vocalizing it, I just realized what sort of journey that I have been on. And everything that it was all about, and I was like, it's a lot of stuff. I didn't even see it like that, because for me it was a day at a time. It feels like I've been around for 5 decades and I haven't. I just got started. So it's interesting to see how now all the dots come together.
So that's how you feel after having this conversation?
I feel happy. I don't know, I just feel like I think my story will tell somebody else, don't give up. Stay on the course. Yeah.